you see different levels of investment in education. Of course, and classroom blocks that have been put up. If you come to roads, look, we in the last 6 years have done about 12 interchanges. Pokwasi interchange, Tamale interchange, Tema motorway interchange, Obichebi Lamte, it's all over. And in terms of asphaltic roads and all the roads that we have done in Ghana, bitumen roads, we have done over 10,000 kilometers, which is unprecedented. The figures are there for Ghanaians to see the levels of quantity and quality of roads that have been done under the NPP administration in the last 6 years. Let's go to health. When COVID struck, we saw the expenditures we needed to do in the health sector, not just building new hospitals, but even the improving existing infrastructure in existing hospitals. We used to have only 2 labs in Ghana to test COVID. You remember it was Noguchi and the Kumah KICC or something. Today we have about 12 across the country and counting. We are even setting up a vaccine manufacturing center in Ghana, and so many interventions.
And you promised that 111 hospitals, none has been done, none has reached even window level.
Oh, no. It's at various stages of construction. People know, of course, not all the 111, but about 87 of them are at different stages of construction.
What about the aspect that you simply borrowed to chop? The size of the government is huge, so there's the compensation to government workers and government employees and party foot soldiers who've been given government roles. That is what is consuming everything that we are borrowing. What do you say to that?
It's exaggerated. I mean, how many? Yes, it is true we could cut down, but how many are the entire ministers? 85. It could come down, as people are saying, but that's not a decision. But that's not a problem.
And 85
yes, so
personal assistants.
How much is the total drivers of all that? How much in terms of money?
It'd be huge. Humongous.
Not really. So, but of course, that's a genuine concern people have expressed, and government has reacted to that. No more VH for internal travels. We are going to make sure people cut down on fuel and other expenditures. And maybe at the right time, I believe it used to be 120. Government responded and brought it down to 85. Maybe at the right time, further reduction may be done.
You are a government that promised that you're going to move us from taxation to production. You have not succeeded in doing that. Now, in addition to that, you are also borrowing. What exactly have you been able to achieve as a government based on your promise? So if you said that we're going to stop paying taxes, I mean, what you described as nuisance taxes, and now you're struggling with e-levy and all these taxes that you're imposing. So that is happening constantly, even after the NDC left, and you are still borrowing just like the NDC was doing. Then what new thing have you really done for us as a government?
Well, we have done a lot. Of course, we complain about nuisance taxes, which we took about 17 of them off.
And reintroduced a lot more.
Well, these are very necessary taxes that you need to maintain the productivity of the country. And of course, we have achieved on taxation, from taxation to productivity. You know, we introduced a program called One District, One Factory. At the moment, we have over 240 factories at various stages. About 127 of them are operational at the moment. We believe that with time, when we are able to see more operations from these companies, a lot of import substitution will happen in the country, and we begin to see a different paradigm shift as far as local production for even export is concerned.
Yeah, but the point is that you are still taxing us and borrowing.
Yes, government will not stop taxing because we have to keep spending in the country, and that's how every country is run. We are talking about the efficiency and the nature of the taxes. If you are taxing condoms and cutlasses and virtually getting...
And mobile monies.
Well, mobile money is a very serious industry that returns hugely on the economy. So there's nothing wrong when you do that.
You're taxing people's pockets.
But if you are taxing
you have a problem with a condom in the person's pocket, but you don't have a problem with the money in the person's pocket.
You're endangering his health. And if you are taxing cutlasses, you don't want the farmers, the poor farmer who is going to weed with cutlass to your taxing. Those are the things, the kayaye in the market you are taxing. Those for us were nuisance taxes, but not when you are talking about VAT or e-levy, or because we know that we are moving the entire economy to digitalization, and so you must have a tax handle that deals with that. And so it may be difficult, but that's how our economies run. And let me tell you, Ghana has one of the lowest tax to GDP ratio, even in the sub-Saharan region, not even in Africa, even in West Africa, or even in entire Africa. We are doing below 13% to our GDP, when the sub-Saharan average is 16 to 18%. So we are not really doing enough. Of course, people have said we should broaden the tax base, and I have seen a lot of compliance measures that we have introduced to do that. But beyond that, we still have to look at how we use innovation and technology to be able to achieve more, especially through e-levy and digitalization. So what we are doing, we are on course. We believe that it's taking a while, but we will get there.
But if you talk about the sub-region, and it's good that you reference that, the sub-region is always referenced when we talk about what we are in now. La Côte d'Ivoire is our neighbor. We have almost everything in common with them. They are not going through what we are going through now.
Who said so?
Are they?
They are.
They are going through
to the IMF as well.
Yeah, but are they going through these
they
measures?
Check their currency as well.
Okay.
Everybody is struggling. I don't know which country in Africa
so
today
as
that
we
is
speak,
not struggling.
Côte d'Ivoire
is
implementing the policy that you are implementing?
Well, it cannot be the same because the problems are not the same. But I'm saying they are going through their own issues and they are equally suffering.
But I'm just trying to compare the issues. So are there issues?
You can't have two countries going through the same problems. But at the end of the day, everybody needed a bailout, including they needed a bailout from the IMF. It means that they are also struggling.
With hindsight, would you say some of your borrowing was not necessary?
Well, I wouldn't say so. It is not about the borrowing, it is what you do with it. And I am saying so far, what we have done with our borrowing, we are confident to point to the nation that we have worked well with the money. Of course, we have not seen the returns because COVID struck and brought the economy to a ground. But in terms of infrastructure, every sector, go to the security agencies in Ghana. And Ghana is one of the safe havens in the West African sub-region. You know the situation in the upper West Africa, by Mali, Burkina, Niger, even in northern Ghana. And look at the investment we have made in the security agencies in terms of logistics and a lot of things to secure our borders in the country. You can check. Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, all these things have not just happened. It has come at a great cost to the nation. And we needed to do this. You'd have to buy patrol boats even on our seas as well. And all these come with cost. And so there is no sector in Ghana that you point to that you are not going to see the results of this borrowing. It's everywhere for every Ghanaian to see.
And you're not ashamed to say that you are borrowing?
Not at all. As long as we are developing and making good use of the funds we borrow, there should be no regrets about it. We should only see what we do with it, how efficient it is, and how it will impact the nation. I am very confident that 10 to 20 years to come, when the human resource of the nation is educated to a basic level of free SHS, we are not going to have the Ghana we have today.
But in relation to the political side of things, history remembers Kutua Champong Asenyentia in relation to dealing with debts or government debt. You are the second government in 40 years to go through this. The records would have you in there that you're a party that came in with so much promise and prospect, and you ended up driving us into a ditch. You're not worried about that political consequence? Well, you're a very proud tradition.
Oh yes, well of course the circumstances are not the same. Kutua Champong was not hit by COVID, and he said Yentia. We are not saying Yentia. Even the debt exchange program is a voluntary exercise. At the end of the day, we are seeking to work with our partners to restore confidence and revive the markets for future profitability. These are two different scenarios. Yes, in the short term, there will be painful sacrifices, but in the end, we all stand to gain and benefit from future. So I don't think the two are the same.
This is Face to Face on City TV. My name is Umar Sanda, but my guest is Dr. John Kumah, his Deputy Minister of Finance. We're just talking about the genesis, how we got here. Now that we're here, I'll ask him to unpack the program or the package that they have delivered to Ghanaians, a very bitter fruit that they have delivered to Ghanaians, how they are hoping that the economy will be restored with that, how much time we are looking at, how much we are going to lose, and how much we'll be gaining consequently or eventually when the dust settles. Please stay with us.
What do you get when you mix the best DJs in the country? The most amazing live band sets, delicious cocktails, and wonderful food. Back-to-back hit music from Ghana's finest group, Prayer, dazzled by the sounds of Abiana and being serenaded by the brilliantly talented Aquabua. The biggest outdoor party, of course, Situation 2022. Are you ready to party? We're changing the situation on December 24, 2022 with the biggest outdoor party in Accra. The Situation Outdoor Party 2022. Let's wrap up the year in style with the most epic party to end all parties this Christmas Eve with Situation. Ain't no party like a city party, because a city party don't stop. This will be another one to remember. Date Saturday 24th December 2022. Venue La Palm Royal Beach Hotel, Accra. Time 8 p.m. Dress code, it's an all-white affair. Get your platinum, diamond, gold, and silver table bookings and seats by calling the hotlines 020-5973-973 or 055-8973-973. Book your table and make reservations now. The Situation Outdoor Party is sponsored by Ebony Condoms, Series, Doritos, and Lay's, and it's supported by City FM and Ghana Weekend. It's powered by City TV. This is a Beyond the Return event.
You're welcome back to Face on City TV. My guest is Deputy Minister of Finance and MP for Ejisu, Dr. John Kumah. We are discussing this new program that has been outdoored by the government, a very bitter one. First of all, under what law, and you're a lawyer, so it's better, what law are you acting on in introducing this program to Ghanaians?
Well, there are so many laws in Ghana that govern our bonds investments in the country, and our constitution, the Bank of Ghana Act, the Securities and Exchange Commission Act. There are several laws that allow bondholders to be re-engaged, and of course it could be voluntary basis or the coercive legislative approach. But we have chosen to do a voluntary debt restructuring with investors. We strongly believe that we are in this together, and if we can explain to them that the best way to resolve this problem is for us to make some sacrifices, and so that in the short term, yes, there will be some potential fallouts in terms of liquidity challenges and not receiving expected returns, among others. But these are things in the short term that will inure to reviving the market for long-term profitability.
When you say voluntary, how voluntary is it really? How many people have volunteered to sacrifice their money to government?
Nobody is sacrificing their monies to government. Okay. Under the exchange program, nobody is sacrificing anything.
But everybody will lose money.
Yes, on your returns, yes. But so let's deal with it. It's different when you are losing your principal. Mm-hmm. That's when we will say that you are losing monies to government, or as people say,
you lose your principal if you wanted to.
No, you're not going to lose.
If I wanted to stop my bond by next year,
yes,
I would lose part of the principal, wouldn't I?
Oh yes, that's a
so that is losing.
No, that is part of the market situation. If you force your maturity ahead of time, mm-hmm. you get a mark-to-market value. That depends on how the market is performing at the time.
Let's say my bond were to mature June 2023. I cannot get it in June 2023. I had planned to build a house in 2023 or buy a car or something. I bought a government bond. And June 2023, you are saying to me that I have to wait till when? 2027?
Mm-hmm.
That cannot be voluntary. Who volunteered to do that for you? That's what I'm asking.
If it is you are not affected, you still get your money to go and build your house. So
How?
we are not talking about individual bondholders, no.
Okay,
it doesn't affect any individual bondholder. So if Sanda has invested 500,000 Ghana cedis in bonds or T-bills, and it will mature in June 2023. June 2023, go to your bank, get your money, go and build your house.
The value will be the same?
It's the same. You are not affected. If you wait to the end of the maturity, the value is the same.
Okay.
Those who are complaining about the mark-to-market value, they are prematurely taking their investment. And that is where you get reduction in your investment. But if you can wait to end of the maturity, you don't lose anything.
So what's the meaning of the 2027 you have introduced all the way to 2027?
Yeah, so those are going to be new bonds. You know, bonds naturally have long-term maturity periods. Some are 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, 2 years. So depending on the date of maturity, we have grouped all the bonds into 4. So those that are about to mature maybe by next year, all will go into the 2027.
So if I was to mature in June 2023, I have to wait for 2027
for the corporate holders.
Okay.
Yes, for the corporate holders.
So that's the
not for individuals.
Okay,
so you have to explain.
Okay, fine. So for the corporate holder who was expecting in June 2023 that there's a maturity, you are forcing them to wait till 2027. They are not volunteering to do that.
Well, don't use certain terms that will disrupt the arrangement.
Okay, explain.
Nobody can force you, because the point is that the market is at a point where you are even likely to lose all your investment. And remember, for every investment you do, there are 2 outcomes. You can gain on your investment, which is what everybody wants all the time. But there's another side that you can lose on your investment. And in any business you do, you either gain or you lose. At the moment where we stand, the market can crash and you can lose all the investment portfolio you have. So government says, let's work together and revive the market, so that instead of you losing all the 100, instead of losing your principal plus the interest at the moment, let's work with you to hold on with the interest payment and revive the market, so that you're back to winning ways again. So it is not like you are going to lose entirely. You're not going to lose. And even the 0 interest payment for 2023, yes, you are not going to get anything on your principal in 2023. But the current value of your bonds is reduced by almost 40%. But by the end of the 2023 arrangement, that value will be restored to your principal. So even though you were getting 0 interest rate, the value has grown to the principal investment you made. So it's not entirely 0, because you'll be moving from negative to a positive level. So yes, these are difficult times. We are not saying it's not going to impact them. Of course, if the interest had come, you was going to gain something. But that is another level of pain than if you were going to lose your principal. And that has
So
to be
the
very
4
clear.
groups you have introduced, what are the maturing dates that have been put under what dates? Do you have that?
Yes. So we have 2027.
For which bondholders?
Oh, well, we have it in percentages.
Okay.
That, you know, when you do your bonds, it's all registered with the Central Securities Depository at the Bank of Ghana. So we have the data. And by the data, we are doing 17%. So in the short term, 17%. Intermediate term, another 17%. Then in the medium term, we will do 25%, and finally 41%. So that adds up to all the bonds that we have in the country.
And this is automated?
Yes.
So I don't have to go to rework any numbers. Government will automatically do that for us.
Once you engage, you get to know all the details.
But 2037 is 15 years.
Yes, some of the bonds are 15 years.
So if
bonds have 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, 2 years.
Is there a possibility that I was expecting my bonds to mature by 2027 and you are now asking me to wait for 10 more years to 2037?
Yes, it could happen.
That's like long life kind of prayer that I have to be praying.
Yes,
so if I don't have long life,
investor. If you're a long-term investor,
yes,
you
but
go
I
into the long
calculated the
term.
long term to terminate in 2027. That was the end of my long term. Now you have pushed it by 10 years to 2037, and I'm maybe 80 years old. You are saying that 90, or maybe I'm 90
Please
years
don't
old.
bring it down to individuals. I've told you, if you are 80 years, you have all your money immediately.
Okay, the difficulty with me refusing to listen to you when you say I shouldn't bring to individuals is that we can always pierce the veil and find that there are individuals behind these groups.
No. there has to be circumstances for piercing the veil, so don't rush to pierce veils.
Okay.
Individuals are separate personalities from companies. So when you are doing the analysis, the impacts are not the same.
Okay.
And even to give buffers to corporate holders of our bonds, government has gone ahead to set up the Financial Stability Fund, which will provide liquidity to such corporate organizations that may face challenges. But at the individual level, there is no impact. Business continues as usual.
This
So
corporate
if you are
holders,
80 years and your bond ends in 2027, you are not affected. You just go and take your money in 2027.
these corporate holders, they are holding it for individuals.
Yes,
So that's ultimately.
but that's a different arrangement. So the obligation is to their beneficiaries.
Yes.
And that obligation is when they have liquidity problem. Government says we will intervene and help you to deal with your beneficiaries. So it's not like it's a zero-sum situation.
So you have money to support the banks in this sector?
Yes,
In this-
there will be special fund with our partners too.
When you're already struggling, you need more. You still think
Well,
you.
struggling doesn't mean you don't have money.
So you have enough
You're
to-
only saying that what you have is not enough for everything you have to do, so you have to manage.
What about the issue about groups that have raised concern about consultations that were done prior? Because if it's voluntary, then they should have been consulted. They say they have not.
Which groups?
A number of them.
No, all the ones I have heard, and I listened to some of the mutual fund holders this morning. They said they were called into a meeting on Friday. This is ahead of the announcement. And if we were called into a meeting on a Friday, that was part of the consultation. And they asked questions, they made their contributions. I don't know what kind of consultations they were expecting again. But if that is not enough, we can. What I have heard are unions who have invested through institutions who are raising concerns. Those institutions have been consulted and engaged, but the beneficiaries who claim that they have their investments there, like TUC, the teacher unions, yes, they have their investments through mutual funds and pension schemes. They are raising concerns. But the assurance we are giving them is that all their funds are secured. Government is not touching their pensions. We are dealing with those mutual funds and where they have invested, and that whenever there is a problem, government has set up buffers to support those institutions to deal with them. So there should be no cause for alarm. If you are a pensioner and you have bought bonds or treasury bills that support you in your pension, it's 100% exempted. So there should be no cause for concern or alarm, and nobody should be agitated. And there should be calm, because maybe people are not understanding exactly what this is about. But when you pause to reflect upon it, you know that you are not really impacted in any way.
Bonds are contracts, aren't they? And can you be changing a contract midway?
Oh, yes. That's why we are calling it voluntary. Once it's consensual, look, even in contracts, there are force majeure clauses, termination clauses, re-engagement clauses. As long as the two parties to the contract can come together and say, look, where we are heading to, there will be a crash. Can we review the situation so that we have a win-win situation and we can agree? There's nothing illegal about it.
If government fails to get the agreement of the other parties, what will be the options to those parties?
Well, like I said, it's voluntary. We expect everybody to come on board, but we won't force anybody. And we have made provision for those who come on board to get safety support, to get buffer support. If you don't want to come on board, then you go into a default situation or a difficult situation. You cannot count on government to either bail you out or intervene for your investors or beneficiaries and that kind of thing. Like these pension unions who are complaining about their situation. If you don't come on board and at the period there's a default and you can't settle them, how do you get buffers to deal with them? Where will you get liquidity support from? So yes, it is better you come on board. We all salvage the situation and restore the economy back to winning ways.
What is the timeline by which you're supposed to have all of these people come on board? What time is I working?
I think it's 10 days from yesterday.
So within 10 days,
yes.
they either
These are
opt in
known,
or opt out?
Yes, but these are known investors.
So it's easy to...
It's easy. We've dealt with them and we know them. They are quantifiable group. That's why we should not be so worried out there, because about 95% of the population are not even involved in this arrangement that we are doing, but they need to understand and come along with government. But the real bondholders are known, the corporate bondholders.
And in what sense are you getting from them? Are they giving you their buy-in?
Yes, we are getting their buy-in. We are very confident that they will all come on board.
How about the political actors? The largest political party says it was not consulted. The former president was not consulted. How do you get a buy-in of all these people if you didn't do that?
Well,
because possibly these bond people, you may see them as private individuals or corporate organizations, but they have political affiliations. What they may decide to undermine your efforts, that ultimately will affect you.
Yeah, and you're right. Unfortunately, in course of the consultations, we saw a lot of undermining and leakages of audios, where even top-level meetings were coming out and misreported. And so we were not left with too much time to engage the public. But I can tell you that we have not closed the door of engagement. As we speak, we are in Parliament. We have already informed Parliament in the 2023 budget about the debt exchange program. It's just the details that we have put out. So engagements and consultations are ongoing. We haven't closed the door of further engagement, but we couldn't have waited any longer because all the engagements were leading to panic and fear amongst the public, as if something untoward was going to happen. So yes, we've put it out, but we haven't closed the door. We'll continue to engage until everybody becomes comfortable with the process.
The panic and fear is from the popular phrase haircuts.
Yeah.
The president said there will be no haircuts.
Yeah.
The Minister for Information came and clarified that, and now your boss has come and further explained that. The argument is that government's song is not in unison in relation to this haircut thing, that you are being dishonest to Ghanaians. I want you to speak to Ghanaians now about this haircut thing.
First of all, the word haircut to domestic bondholders is a propaganda. It never came from government, and we know that people intended to put fear in people. There's no haircut to your principal. In fact, if you're a T-bill holder, you get every benefit as you're getting already. Your principal, your interest, your returns, and everything. If you're a personal bondholder, you are getting everything you are getting. Your principal, your interest, your returns. So where's the haircut? And even the corporate bondholders, their principal is intact. It's only the expected returns that we are engaging them on. So where is the haircut?
I have it. Okay,
so
continue.
clearly, it is just a propaganda to put fear in people for political reasons, we know. But I want to assure the population that there's no such thing. The president's message is clear. There will be no haircut. Indeed, there has been no haircut in the announcement of the finance minister under the debt exchange program, as far as all principals are concerned.
Dr. Mark Osesibe is a former member in Parliament. I spoke to him and he gave me the impression, not in so many words, that you either drink deep or you don't taste at all. In suggesting this, he says that, listen, you need the support. Why are you dealing with only interest and not touching the principal? He thought that you should just go the full haul. And there's an indication in thinking that you are forced to restrict your haircuts to only the interest and not the principals because the president has already preempted that and now you are having to readjust to be in tune with the president. Do you not think that you should have drunk deep instead of, just doing this surface mining that you're doing?
Well, Doctor has a lot of experience. I remember when he was the chairman of the finance committee and all the support to this government. So we respect his views a lot. But I believe that maybe he's not privy to the data in terms of what we have done and what we want to achieve. The objective of government is to hit 55% of debt to GDP in the medium term. We've done all the data analysis, and for us, this approach lands us in that comfortable zone over the period. And so there is no need to do more than what your target is. We believe that the target we have set and doing just the interest at the moment for domestic, as we have done, will put us in the landing zone. So there's no cause for concern.
You see, there's a cause of concern if people remember that you are a government that has recently failed at your projections. The E-levy, for instance, you had a huge projection that you were working with, and it failed you, and it sent everything off gear. Now, this is a projection you're working with. And the thinking is that why don't you widen the net? Why are you restricting yourself to the interest and not the principal? Because if you did that, you may rake in more revenue. I mean, you may rake in more, not revenue, but now that you're restricting yourself, you may end up failing again.
No, you must always also measure the revenues you are accruing to the impact on the society as well. So there will be cost to every savings that you are doing. And when you weigh the cost to cutting people's principals to the current arrangement that still brings you to the landing zone, we think that is a better option, and there's no need to overburden the people. Already, even taking the interest out is a big sacrifice and a big pain, and than to go into
It'll be better than defaulting completely.
No, we are not going to default with the current arrangement we have done. That's why I'm saying maybe he's not privy to the data on the basis for which we made the decision. E-levy could be wrong because you are now starting a new concept that people were opposing. Even though the data was available, the resistance and the avoidance scheme we saw afterwards contributed to it. But this one, you have the portfolio, you know it. You know your returns that you pay every year or every month or quarterly to these bondholders. So if you say you are saving this, it's exactly your obligation that you already know. You cannot be wrong on that.
Do you not worry that the bond market will become very unpopular? People will start abandoning it and ultimately it will have some effects?
Well, that is where we want to avoid with the crash. It is when you crash that you go into that situation. But where you manage with partners on board, you save it together. It's like you are avoiding sinking rather than swimming. And I believe when we swim with this debt exchange program, with all partners on board, there will be no issues at the end of the program.
This is face-to-face on City TV, so that's a government's package, and this is informed actually by the IMF. So my next question to him would be, the IMF money, when would it come? Because IMF has forced us to go and hold a cane to our own bond people and ask that, listen, you have to do A, B, C, D. Also, government itself, beyond this, what is it doing so that the debt to GDP ratio comes further down? Because we are told that this is taking us to what, 85%? How do we go further down? That's a question I'll put to the minister when we come back. Please stay.
My name is Gina, and this salon is where I work. Good morning to those who speak good English like I do. That's B, assistant madam, always cleaning boss.
Efia, so can't you sweep the place? Do you know what I went through last night? I had uninstalled the whole of the night, but I managed to be here today.
That's Efia. She's in the Guinness Book of World Records for giving the most excuses.
I am not missing any drama today.
Ow, you're burning my scalp!
Baby, I messed up again. Oh. My family riches. I'm sure they've located the salon.
Hey, don't come and prophesy on me.
That's Hannah, always acting religious.
I didn't see you on Sunday. I hope it's not about that gentleman.
Is he cheating? If he was just cheating, it wouldn't have been a problem. He bought that foolish girl a car.
Sometimes you just have to figure out things you are doing or not doing right.
Especially with the bedroom things, maybe you're not doing it right.
Ask God for more spouse.
Akramo is back. Look, today I have hip pad and buttocks pad.
You like this? Your buttocks is like my palm.
Which part of your body do they want?
I'm Gifty, the owner of this salon.
Good. Now that's our boss.
Hey! Last time the week copy came to pick. You still haven't brought the money.
Ask Gina, I paid her.
She's all you know.
You've already met your new colleague, have you?
Are you straight?
No, I'm not. I'm crooked.
The Hairdressers returns on 7th December 2022 at 7:30 p.m. only on City TV.
You're welcome back to Face on City TV. My guest is Deputy Minister of Finance, Dr. John Kumah, and we are concluding this conversation on the government's plans to deal with debt situation and how it's going to get out of this. And this is an IMF conditionality, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
So this calculation you've done is a domestic debt, right?
Yes.
And this will bring us up to where?
Well, you're not done because it's voluntary. You can't be specific.
But you have some projections.
Of course, we have some projections. And so the entire debt operation is a necessary condition, but it is not sufficient to bring you to that landing zone. Of course, you need to have it accompanied by fiscal interventions as well. And if you look at the 2023 budget, there are serious expenditure measures to cut down on government expenditures. And when we are able to do all that, then we'll be able to hit to the 55% target. Of course, after the domestic announcement, we are engaging, and very soon we will announce the external debt operations as well. That will also come on stream.
Yeah, when is that one coming? When are we going to hear about that?
Very soon. It will happen.
So this 55% target will take us up to 2037?
No, 2028.
So by 2028, we're hoping that we'll disentangle ourselves.
Yes.
And that is, if you put a domestic agenda you have put on the table now, if it succeeds, and the international agenda
also
or the external agenda, that is where we are going to.
Yes.
I see. What about other measures by government? What else are you doing in the mix?
Yes, a lot. For instance, I always say that one of the key difference between 2022 budget and 2023 budget was the project financing Appendix 10C, where government in 2022 project financing alone was about 2 billion that we took to do new projects in our country. This year we took 2023 zero. It means that you have cut your expenditure by 2 billion immediately on that page alone. Of course, all other interventions that we have done, we are reviewing a number of expenditure issues. Of course, the ones that people have problems with, driving off V8 in towns and cities, fuel allocations are being cut.
Sacking ministers.
Sacking ministers rest with the president, so he has to take that decision. Of course, he's done that before, reduced it from 120 to 85, and people think it has to be more. So he will respond to it at the right time. Of course,
stopping the building of the National Cathedral is one thing people talk about a lot.
Well, I disagree with them on that because that's an investment project and that will bring returns to the country. And I don't see which investment is better than the cathedral in terms of returns. So if the argument is that let's invest in things that repay itself and bring us profit, then that argument is moot. But of course, priorities are set by government, is subject to criticism from people, and we can always disagree on those matters.
Others say you should, work on the free SHS, make some amendments.
Yes,
the government insists that no.
Yes.
You're not going to
because for us, look, the government revenue this year from the budget is 143 billion. We are spending 2.9 billion of that for 1.3 million children of our country. How is that too much? So when we calculate the impact on the population and the opportunities we are offering the future generation of this country, we as government think that it's worthwhile expenditure to make. And its impact, the entire flagship programs of government is 9 billion cedis, including National Cathedral, everything that they are talking about, all the cost called flagship programs of government is 9 billion out of the 143 billion. So those really are not the major expenditure items to look at. Interest payment alone is 54 billion.
And you can't do anything about that.
That's why we are doing something about it through the debt exchange program. You have to bring it down, but you can't bring it down because it's a rigid expenditure by law and by obligations. And so you have to go through a process. Those are the things we need to target.
Why didn't we say Yentia?
It has consequences to say Wuntia. And so it's better you achieve the same thing through an orderly and amicable process than a very unilateral, forceful posture. You achieve the same results.
Yes,
so
but
why won't you
it will give you some more room to relax.
You don't need room to relax. You need respectability and confidence in your system, because that doesn't bring you to the end of the world. You move on when problem comes, you solve them. You don't deny it and fight people. And so for us, this is a better way, amicably, orderly. You craft a process, you resolve the problem, and you move on.
The issue of the IMF itself. So this is the first stage or second stage.
Well, this is a trial stage, so it's a precondition.
We don't even have a program yet.
No, but we will have the program very soon, especially now that we've been able to announce the debt exchange program. The IMF are in town for one of their engagements. We believe that by end of this year, Ghana will have the staff level agreement, which will be preparing to go to board for approval.
So do they approve of this debt sustainability?
Yes, it's been done with them. We work together.
And so
with them.
they have done. Are there other things? So they've proposed to you that you have to freeze employment next year. You have accepted.
Yes, all those
what
things.
What other draconian things have they said to you that you are buying?
Well, they will not suggest draconian things to you currently. Okay. They will tell you, bring your debt to sustainable level. So you decide, what can you do to achieve that? And then you discuss with them. And they say, okay, go ahead. So the IMF of previously where they insist A, B, C, D, no, now they just tell you, bring your debt to sustainable level. So you decide which ones to work on to come to that level. And they work with you to achieve that. And so they are also getting feedback from their programs that are implemented in different countries. And they also working to improve on relationship with countries. And so at the moment, they've been very, very receptive and cooperative and assisted Ghana in so many ways.
Based on the projections, when do we hope to finalize a deal with them?
We are hoping to have staff level agreement by end of this year.
Mm-hmm. But that's not enough.
Once you achieve that, the rest is just a board meeting.
So the money, do we really desperately need that money, or this is just to give us credibility? So the 3 billion is not really a big deal.
Well, the 3 billion provides you with balance of payment support and, of course, exchange rate support in your currency strength. But most importantly, a program with the IMF restores confidence with your partners, bilateral, multilateral, and other investors that deal with your economy. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much of what the IMF itself gives you, but their presence is the doors it opens to you. World Bank, ADB, AFDB, almost all the multilaterals and bilateral institutions that you are talking about, even some of the nations may want to deal with you, but if you are with an IMF program, they are more confident that they can go ahead and support you.
We have gone to the IMF 17 times, and the history is replete with the fact that as soon as we move out of an IMF program, we become reckless, and that's how we end up going back to the IMF. There is a school of thought from some analysts that you are playing ball with the IMF now, so it can give you some relaxation, give you some credibility, so that you can go back and borrow more and worsen our plight, so that by 2025, if your government fails to break the 8, you would have at least you would have succeeded in breaking the economy for whoever is going to take over. What would you say to such a criticism?
Well, it's a misplaced criticism. When Ghana went to the IMF, I believe Ghanaians heard the IMF themselves saying that we acknowledge Ghana's situation not is because of mismanagement, but because of global difficult circumstances. And it's not only Ghana coming. They've seen increased numbers of countries coming to them, not because of mismanagement, but because of the current global hardship. So these are totally different scenarios that is pushing Ghana to be where we are. And we believe when you are facing problem as a result of global interventions, you need global solution to that problem. That's where our working with the IMF, we believe, will help resolve these problems.
So you can promise us that if you are giving this green light to continue to operate, you're going to be measured and disciplined.
Of course, we will have to be
measured. And we are not going to see
disciplined.
What you have done in 6 years being repeated in the next 2 years that you are in.
You see, I have always disagreed with people when they say we have borrowed. And we have everything to show for the borrowing we have done.
So did the previous people.
Well, they left us with doomsday that they couldn't resolve.
And they left you with badges that you have come to utilize.
But they had the badges, why didn't they utilize it?
The American plans that you came to renew a contract of. They left you with hospitals that you used to manage COVID-19. and so on. I
Yes.
could list them.
It's true.
Yes.
And I'm saying that.
So I'm just saying that what they did is the same thing you're doing now.
No, it's not what they did. It's the same thing that we did.
They didn't chop the money.
Well, so as a country, it's not about chopping the money. It is about prudent use of the resources. As a country, we will never stop borrowing to grow the economy, but it is what we borrow to do. So looking forward, we must all be concerned about why do we borrow and for what? And how do we account for the borrowing? And how efficient is the use of these monies when we get them? We may disagree in terms of what we use it for, but at the end of the day, we must have priority programs that can repay itself, that can give us enough productivity, and that can help us to repay. You get it. And that's why I disagree with people who have problem with National Cathedral. Because it has a good returns if in terms of repaying itself. It's just like the National Theatre we built under Rawlings when people complain about it. Today is one of the monumental architectural design and monument of our country that has repaid itself and still serving the nation. So these are not things that are of no value. They'll repay themselves. It's like building a road or a school or electricity or infrastructure investment in the energy sector. All these things repay themselves. So let's tone down on the propaganda and see how indeed in the 12 interchanges we have built in the last 12 years, it's there to show. We've seen the railway lines from Mpakadan to Tema. We've seen it, that we are even building railway on the Kosomo Dam and the rest. So clearly, a lot is happening.
On the Volta River, not on the Kosomo Dam.
On the Volta River.
You have a history of telling us never again, but you have to be forced to swallow back your sputum in going to IMF. Can you say never again to us that we will never get to this level of debt distress?
Let me address that misrepresentation.
Oh, is it?
Yes, because we were having a debate in Parliament on the E-levy and versus going to IMF. Okay, and of course my position at the time was that we will never go to the IMF because we have to pass the E-levy. That was the argument. Of course, we know that when we pass the E-levy, we continue to face challenges in its implementation. So we're not left with any choice than to go to the IMF. But people, of course,
if you watch that video, don't you feel shy?
Well, it's a debate, and in debate you speak to win. It does. We know we are members of the IMF, and forever will continue to be members of the IMF. So you have to take that statement in the context of the debate. That if you have an option not to go to the IMF, and your projections at the time tells you that if you succeed with that option, you avoid the other option, what will be your decision? And I will always take the option that doesn't deliver me to the IMF.
Dr. John
Unfortunately, that option didn't work, and we know why it didn't work. And so we are with the IMF.
Dr. John Kumah, Deputy Minister of Finance, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you, my brother.
My name is Umaru Sandawado. Thank you for watching City TV. Stay with us. It's your world.
Enjoy all 64 games live on GoTV. Get your GoCoder and Plus at 89 Ghana cities. GoTV, love it.
Signing a football superstar for 200 million euros or more?
What? That's crazy!
What's also crazy is that it doesn't even matter. Clubs willing to pay 200 or even 300 million for stars like Haaland or Mbappé plan on getting the money back eventually. Kit sales, Insta followers, sponsor deals. It's not only about the performance on the pitch.
So how can a big player actually make their club money? Is it even possible that superstars come for free? Also, stay tuned until the end. We'll have an expert assessment of the upcoming superstar summer and we'll look at some of the biggest superstar transfers in history.
Football is a global marketplace and top players relocate constantly. And there is serious cash involved. According to Deloitte's Football Money League, the 20 richest clubs globally, all European by the way, earned 8.2 billion euros in revenue in 2020-21.
Each summer, hundreds of millions of euros change hands as the world's top football clubs compete for the world's top players. And clubs now want superstars to be cash cows on and off the pitch. But those guys are few and far between.
Talents such as Messi or Ronaldo are in short supply, but you don't necessarily have to be the best talent to be a superstar.
The image of the player is, I think, is not as important as the skills, but in this social era is an important part to give a player the slogan of superstar.
Such a star can make it much easier for the fans actually to be attracted, to be attached and then lead towards the club.
Because there are football stars and then there are marketable superstars. Let's compare Harry Kane to Paul Pogba. The Spurs captain's numbers on the pitch far outweigh those of Pogba. But the Frenchman's shirt is sold more often and his social media presence dwarfs Kane's reach. Does that make Pogba more marketable and therefore just as valuable?
I'm not saying Pogba is the bigger star, but it does show his value to clubs if they're looking to claw some of their cash back. They don't just want players, they want brands.
So, how do players build up their brands and therefore their earning potential? Let's have a look. Scoring goals isn't all that bad, but celebrating each goal with a unique celebration and having millions of fans copy said celebration is a whole other story. Just ask Kylian Mbappé, Megan Rapinoe or Paulo Dybala. Your jersey number is not just a number, it can be a brand. David Beckham minted the number 23 for future generations. Everyone knew Thierry Henry wears the number 14 and Mesut Özil's brand is literally called M10. Also, you cannot be a superstar without a superb social media presence. Quick guess, which of these footballers has more Instagram followers? Yep, it's the 3 bench warmers.
What? That's crazy!
Of course, a strong social media presence or a signature celebration do not automatically make a player a good signing. But it does instantly give the club access to a new audience, potentially in the millions, and the commercial opportunities that come with that.
Some superstars also reach their star status by signing a lot of lucrative sponsorship deals or starting product lines, which then grew their fan bases and often, in turn, their clubs.
That means that players have a lot more power when it comes to the negotiating table.
Transfer fees are of course a big expense. They include signing on fees, agent fees, as well as loyalty and performance bonuses. But a star player's salary is typically the investment for clubs. In recent years, some stars switch clubs without transfer fees after letting their contracts expire.
If a player is able to put himself in a position where he can dictate his own future and be unencumbered by a potential transfer fee being spent and paid by the player's new club to the player's former club, then absolutely is in a position to seek an increased compensation package.
The average wage of a Premier League footballer is around 3 million euros net per year. An elite international at a top Premier League club could earn 10 million net a year or much more. By the way, Cristiano Ronaldo tops that list in the Prem with 31 million net per year. So Timo Werner's reported 16 million euro salary on a 5-year contract would mean 80 million euro net, as in 160 gross for the club. Good one.
So it's a hefty investment, but if you buy the right player, here's how you could make some money out of them.
The main factors to make money from a visit player are the potential increase in broadcasting revenues. There's merchandise revenues, potentially ticket sales, but also potentially new sponsors can be attracted.
And if the player performs accordingly, you likely win a few games or even a title or two, which further raises your share of the competition's broadcasting fees. Eventually, you could even sell the player for profit. It is the sum of many factors that can ensure in the end that high transfer expenses or even a high annual salary of the clubs pay off. Success on the pitch, sponsorship contracts, ticket prices, and also jersey sales, even if most of that money flows into the coffers of the brands.
I think it's a pretty commonly held myth that shirt sales are going to allow clubs to recoup the transfer value. The kit deal is a licensing deal whereby the likes of Adidas, Nike, Kumah, New Balance pay the club in exchange for the license to produce, manufacture, distribute, and ultimately receive sales and profits from the distribution, manufacture, and sale of the shirt.
While high transfer and salary expenses usually cannot be compensated for by jersey sales, social media has proven helpful at making money with players.
Social media is only an indirect income source, and it rather relates to intangible values of the player and of the club because it relates to the image of the club.
Platforms like Instagram or YouTube can attract more fans, but there's also sponsored content. If a player appears in photos with a shirt of club and sponsor, both gain from this exhibition as well.
I know what you're thinking. Enough is enough. Let's talk about some players.
There are only a handful who can bring in massive funds to their club, but a lot of players are still marketable on various levels. Once top stars Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Wayne Rooney went overseas to their respective MLS clubs in 2018, of course their number 9 jerseys were among the top of the lists immediately as well. Apropos Ibra, who's still going strong at 40 years young.
When AC Milan last year decided to renew the contract of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, even if he's 40 years old, a lot of important brands of cars or other things decided to renew the contract with Milan because Zlatan Ibrahimovic was there. If Zlatan Ibrahimovic was not in AC Milan squad, probably they didn't renew the contract because Zlatan is a brand now.
When Zlatan and Milan announced the extension of their contract, around that time a lot of brands such as BMW also renewed their contracts with Milan. And there are others. When James Rodriguez joined Everton on loan in 2020, he did not improve the club's sporting situation much. But it only took 6 months for his number 19 to become Everton's best-selling jersey that year. Online traffic to the club's website increased by 433% on the day of James' signing, and Everton's social media following jumped by 10%. US superstar Alex Morgan joined Tottenham in a short-term deal in 2020 as well. The forward boasted more followers on social media than the club itself, and they sought to capitalize. After her arrival in mid-September, only Gareth Bale sold more shirts than Alex Morgan in the whole month of September.